Hello viewers, we finally have the return of the GT World Series Nations Cup in Gran Turismo 7, featuring this car for the first round, the Audi DTM car, which was recently added. An interesting car because it has DRS, as you can see the rear wing folding away down the straights. Now we're going to jump into the qualifying session for this race, and here at Brands Hatch it would make for quite an interesting spectacle. Qualifying would be very important because, given my real life experience of this track, watching DTM cars around here a couple of years ago, overtaking is next to impossible. And so we are going to hope to qualify towards the front of the pack. Now this is my first lap, 16.7, put me on pole for a few seconds before RO Racing went 0.2 quicker. So back to the pit lane to get some fresh tyres, but unfortunately on my second lap I got caught up behind this guy in the second half of the lap, and even though I was quicker up until this point, it did compromise the end and we had this weird little incident over the finish line. But as you can see, second place on the grid. It didn't matter that I couldn't improve because no one else did, and we had quite a key decision to make here. Do we go on mediums or softs to begin the race? I decided, because I wasn't on pole, I would try out the medium and go for the soft later. Now, this game weirdly has a problem with glare. I don't know why there is so much glare in Gran Turismo 7, something they need to fix. It's really bugging me. But anyway, let's jump into the start. This is going to be interesting because of the weird slant on the grid here at Brands Hatch. Into one traction control, away from the line we go. We're going to move across instantly to protect second place. In towards the first corner. Quite a lot of understeer with this new tyre model in the game. And as you can see, the cars behind dropping away quite quickly, with most of those guys running quite wide with, again, lots of understeer on that first corner. So let's try and settle into this race and work out what is what. Now I'm on the medium tyre. I'm guessing the leader would be on the soft, and therefore they should be pulling away. As for the person in third, who knows? If they catch up with me quite quickly, I would guess they're on the soft tyre, but we shall see. Now, as I mentioned in the intro, the DRS is something that is active on this car, and actually it was quite interesting because with this car you had to map it to one of the buttons on your controller or steering wheel, in my case. And you had to actually hold down the button the entire time you wanted to use it, which actually was quite awkward, I found. But it was something I would have to get used to because it isn't something I've really done on this game before. There aren't many cars where you're holding DRS button down for the entirety of the straights on the whole lap. But at the end of lap 1, a 2-second gap to the leader. You can see they've already disappeared. I really didn't have the best of laps. I mean, I did preserve my position, but I made a couple of mistakes. See here, trying to get used to Sheen Curve, a really difficult corner at Brands Hatch. I think one of the most difficult in the game, to be honest, and one that I can never seem to get consistently right. This is lap number 3, and I had a massive moment here through turn 4 on the exit, on the curb, the car wanting to break away, and luckily I managed to recover it in time before spinning into the Shadow Realm. Fortunately as well, before the Frenchman behind was able to get past. Now, something about the Audi DTM car is that it has quite a lot of downforce and therefore a lot of dirty air as well. And so I was quite easily able to keep this car behind me, even with these mistakes that I'm making. You see the car behind just wasn't really able to get too close. And so I kind of just settled into this rhythm, with the leader going into the pit lane here at the end of lap 7 to go onto the medium tyre, which seemed quite early, so that is something we would have to keep track of as we move into the lead of the race, courtesy of that pit stop. And so on lap 8 I wanted to last at least until lap 12 or 13, maybe a bit further, before changing onto the softs. So let's see if we can just have some nice consistent laps now that we are in the lead of the race. You see the Frenchman behind not able still to really make an impression, so I don't really feel too under pressure at this point in time. The guy who was in the lead now in third, so you don't actually lose a huge amount of time from serving a pit stop around here. I think it's less than 10 seconds, and so you're not going to lose too much. So rising up the hill here, really fast right-hander at the top, sweeping through. This car has so much grip, and it does feel quite good through this back sector on the faster corners. And then coming up towards Sheen Curve, this is where things would unravel for me, unfortunately, as I just got on the DRS a slight bit too soon, and then boom, before you know it, perpendicular meeting with the wall, with barrier, and I've dropped all the way down to 6th place, would you imagine? And it's almost going to be 7th here with sick reactions, putting me under massive pressure here into the final corner, and with damaged front and rear bumpers and a right front wheel, I was definitely under pressure here to try to keep this position with a damaged car. Luckily this is a video game and the damage will repair itself quite quickly, as it already has done now. But luckily enough, managing to defend 6th position, so kind of limited the damage. But that was a very unfortunate incident, going from the lead down to P6, losing something in the region of 10 seconds, I would say. Lap 8 was a 127, lap 7 was a 117, so yeah, about 10 seconds difference there. And from here, it would be quite a long race to try to fight back, but let me tell you right now that this was very much a race worth watching, even with all these mistakes. It's going to be a good one. So coming up the hill through Sheen, there's actually a puff of smoke there, so some contact from some of the cars in front, as we're just getting into the range of the dirty air from the car in front. As we head into the final corner, lap number 10 of a 23 lap race, you can see the Swede there in front, pulls off to the right hand side, as does the Frenchman from, I think it was 2nd. And so we're going to gain 2 positions there up to P4. We're going to go quite long on this first stint on the medium tyres, trying to really set ourselves up for a solid second stint on the faster soft tyre. So through Druids, you can see it's a very close race between the top 6, maybe separated by less than 10 seconds. And so it was fairly close. I was sitting in a fairly okay position here, not too close to the car in front, so I wasn't really wearing out my tyres too much. Because if you follow too closely to the car in front for a long time, the dirty air is really going to cause your tyres to die of death, which is suboptimal. So no one pitting at the end of lap number 11, but at the end of lap number 12, you can see 2 cars here peeling off to the right hand side, and that's the 2 Austrian drivers going in for their pit stop, both on the mediums, going onto the softs. And my mediums were looking, well, they've seen better days, let's put it that way. But I still wanted to extend to give myself something of a tyre differential compared to the Austrian drivers who had just gone in on the same strategy a couple of laps earlier than me. So just in front we have the Frenchman, who has pretty much always been in the lead apart from a couple of laps there. And so looking good for him at this point in time. End of lap 13, decided to stay out. The tyres were still just about okay. And you can see here lap 14 just really struggling now by this point, as the front left especially really suffering around here with lots of fast long right-handers. That front left is well, it's seen better days as well, and this is the time where I can give that front left tyre some respite by coming to the pit lane and changing it over to the softs. So let's see what position we're going to exit the pit lane in once the Audi boys have done a fantastic job as ever. So away we go, rejoining the circuit in quite a clear P5, P6 1.5 seconds behind. The gap in front of the 2 Austrians about 5 seconds, and then the 2 Frenchmen in the lead, first and second. So coming down the hill here, we're going to turn left and experience a yellow flag because one of the Frenchmen has actually gone for a nice little spin in the middle of the straight, and that's going to hand us P4. Let's take a look at this situation then. So we have the 2 Austrians there, about 4 seconds in front. Then quite a long way in front we have the Frenchman, who's been commanding this race. Put it on pole position, drove away at the beginning, and is looking pretty good. And with a 14-second lead to me, you would have thought, well, this is going to be very difficult to overturn. But all I can do is put in some consistent laps, and I was getting a little bit more consistent as this race went on, and hoped that I could catch up. This was a really difficult race for me in the sense that Group 2 isn't a group that really comes up that much, and certainly Group 2 around Brands Hatch is not something that happens too much, and so I needed to put a bit more practice in than I actually did. Now let's take a look at the gap to the leader. So this is something I'm always looking at in this type of scenario. The gap to the leader was about 13.3 at the beginning of the lap, and because they are now on the medium and I'm on the soft, I should be quicker, and that gap should be coming down. As it is, we've already gained half a second, and that's been one sector so far, so that's good. That's good news so far, and we're going to go purple in fact at the end of the second sector. And the fastest lap so far, 1:16.8, set by the Frenchman in the lead, and we're going to look to try to at least match that. We should be going quicker theoretically, because we are now on the same tyre and with less fuel, so we should actually be able to set a quicker time. The gap down to 12.1, and so we've gained over a second already. A little bit wide there, that's not going to be helpful, and actually the gap comes up slightly, and that was my problem corner this entire race, I would say. Machine curve, especially with, of course, the big crash we had. Into the final corner of lap number 16, leaving us 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23. Yes, that's right, 7 laps. I just had to count that out to make sure. And over the line we go. That was a 1:17.0, so 2 tenths away from the fastest lap of the race. So we're going in the right direction. Pace is not too bad. We're going to try to connect here a couple of fast, consistent laps to just begin to put the pressure on the cars in front and see if we can just claw back some of this time. End of lap 18, a 1:17.3, so I wasn't able to go any quicker there. This lap was about to be my quickest lap of the race. With a gap to the Austrian in third, down to 4 seconds rather than the 5 that it was when I exited the pit lane. I knew I was going in the right direction, and I knew I had a 2-lap advantage in terms of tyre life compared to the 2 guys in front. So I knew that the tyres, they would start coming towards me as this race went deeper and deeper and closer to the end. And with this in mind, I knew that I was in a good position here. I actually felt as though even with a 10-second gap to the leader, actually this was actually not impossible. So coming through the difficult corners here at the back end of Brands Hatch on the Grand Prix circuit. Not been a Grand Prix circuit since the 80s, but it is still known as the Grand Prix circuit. Still here, we are 1/10 up on the purple lap, so if we can connect this final corner and get it right, I'm going to go purple, which is always nice in this situation, to set the purple lap, and you put your name up on the screen on the left hand side, as we do there. Just lets the other drivers know, look, this guy's behind you, he's quick, and he is catching. So it's always a nice little statement to put up on the screen for the other drivers, just to let them know, just to unsettle them maybe a little bit, put the pressure on, and hope for the best. So lap number 20 here, we're going to whip it forward slightly. After putting in 1:16.7, so good consistency, I was able to finally see the leader. We had visual confirmation of the leader's existence. 5.5 seconds now in front, with 3.5 laps left to go. And so this was actually quite quickly heading in my direction. This was actually looking pretty good, even despite that earlier mistake. But we still had quite a lot of work to do, and as we mentioned, overtaking around Brands Hatch is very, very difficult indeed. And so here on lap 21, the gap now down to 3.4, and as you can see, the 4 of us at the front running in quite close proximity, especially the front 2, and that was a very different picture compared to about 7 or 8 laps ago when I exited the pit lane about 13 seconds off the lead. So the complexion of this race has completely changed, and now we're not even sure out of these top 4 who is going to win this race. It's going to be very, very close indeed. The leader is going defensive, and that is good news for me, slowing down the Austrian in second place. This was quite a surprising revelation. The Frenchman is going to peel off and go into the pit lane and change tyres once again. That is a catastrophic strategy error, having to go in for the second time, uncalled for, unneeded, and that is going to cost them the race lead, and they're going to go down into P4. But now I have 2 laps to try to overtake 2 Austrians around Brands Hatch. Let's see if we can do it. Funnily enough, 3 blue cars away at the front, so clearly blue car is OP. Into turn 4, I sense the opportunity, on the brakes late, up the inside we go. It's a perfectly executed overtake, tiny bit of contact, but I think it was acceptable. And that is one of the 2 Austrians dealt with. We have 1 more left to do. Can we do it? Can we reclaim the race lead and pull off a sensational comeback here at Brands Hatch? Through the back section once again, maximising the curves on the entry, on the apex, and on the exit. Through Sheen Curve, again, getting this a bit better as the race went on. My consistency was improving through there. A little bit wide through the left. Oh my goodness, the Austrian in the lead there, having a bit of a moment on the exit, but recovering and continuing. But it wasn't going to last long, because here they're going to turn left on a right-hander and just graze the gravel. I'm going to move through sensationally into the lead with 1 lap left to go. And this is fantastic timing. With just only 1 single lap left to go, can these guys have any response? Are they going to be able to get me back with minimal amount of overtaking opportunities remaining in this lap? And the confidence I had was that I knew my tyres were 2 laps newer and fresher than theirs, so I should be quicker, I should be okay. But we made mistakes earlier in this race, and it definitely therefore is not over. I still had to drive this final lap with a certain intensity and make sure that I didn't fall into their clutches, because you just never know. If you're within overtaking range, someone could send a stupid move and just push you into the wall. You just never quite know. And so I wanted to protect this gap that I had, just under a second, 0.8 seconds. Coming through Sheen Curve, hitting the apex quite nicely, over to the right for the second to last corner of the race. And the gap looks pretty good. I can kind of rest easy now through the final turn. And my goodness, what a race it was to come through after that smash on the earlier stint. It's going to be a race victory, and one that I was very, very happy to complete, especially after such a big mistake. And in many ways, the performance overall didn't quite deserve it. Sometimes you've got to stay in the race and hope for the best. Thank you so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. Subscribe for more, and I'll catch you next time. Goodbye.